It's the holiday season, so now it's time to wrap up 2022. We're going to talk about all of that on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 176 and a special Christmas episode of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess and the gift that keeps on giving all year round, Mandy Petrie.
Season's greetings, Brian.
And so we have Christmas right around the corner, and I thought today would be a wonderful day to look back on the year and all the wonderful gifts that we've received, all the wonderful TV shows that we've watched, all the movies that we've experienced this year. And there have been plenty of great things that we've seen. And I also figured, well, this was going to be a slow news week because there wasn't going to be an awful lot of stuff going on. And so I thought today we could just get together and talk about all the great stuff that we've enjoyed this year. But then DC decided to declare a civil war. So that's where we are.
Civil War, you say?
Yes. So we're going to...
Is this like Captain America's Civil War? We're going to get like...
No, there was actually more kindness in the Civil War at Captain America and Iron Man than what's been going on here. So let's talk about all the weird stuff that's going on at DC Films, Warner Brothers, and all the weird stuff that's been happening over the course of the last week or so. Mm-hmm. And what we know so far is that Peter Safran and James Gunn have taken over as co-CEOs of DC Films, and we knew that there was going to be a transitional period.
Right.
But have things been popping off online?
I've seen, so Twitter kind of says, we're not getting rid of Gal Gadot, and also that we're not losing Black Adam, but his future may be different than what we thought it would be. That's what Twitter kind of sounded like.
Well, here's the big problem, and we might as well just get this out of the way now, is that there are a lot of people who have a lot of agendas. And so depending on who you listen to is basically the story that they feed you. So there's all kinds of different stories floating around. Now, James Gunn has been going on Twitter and saying things like, a lot of the stuff is not true. Some of it is true. Some of it we haven't decided it's true or not. And that was a couple of weeks ago. And now he's having to come back on. And he posted this, about a page of a document on Twitter saying, look, when we came in, DC told us and we knew that things were going to be rough, that there was a contingency of fans out there that weren't going to like what we were planning on doing, and that we were going to catch a lot of grief, and we understood that. In fact, talk to either one of us, we know what that's like to catch grief. But we do have the best interest of the DC Cinematic Universe at heart, and we are going to, when we can talk about it, we will tell you what's up.
Okay.
And, of course, James Gunn does, in fact, know what it's like to get savaged online because even though it was the least effective cancel in the history of being canceled online because he got canceled into a CEO position, he did take a lot of grief online. So, yes, he most certainly does understand all of that stuff. But what exactly is going on? Well, here's the little bit that we know for right now. Wonder Woman 3's been canceled. Mm-hmm. It's not coming back.
Right.
We also know that Henry Cavill is not going to be playing Superman.
Right.
We also know that by 2025, it's going to be a complete reboot. So for everybody who was talking about, well, what about the Suicide Squad? What about
Shazam?
Shazam and Peacemaker and all that? Peacemaker still dips the toe in the world of the Snyderverse. If you think about it, if we get a second season, that's going to come out before 2025. So you don't have to explain that world in a new reboot because it won't have happened yet.
Okay.
So he could still do another season of Peacemaker without having to really knock things around. What we also know is in the Flash movie, the Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot, I should say Gal Gadot, because she's not French, even though being an American, I think I hear everybody say Gal Gadot. And
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's Gal Gadot. People think it's Gadot, like
Right, like waiting for Godot.
or Gadot or escargot, but
Yeah.
she's not French.
Gadot. Gadot.
It's Gadot because she's
Gadot.
Israeli.
Okay.
But to the American ear, an Israeli accent sounds like she's French. So everybody went Gadot. But it's Gal Gadot. But her and Henry Cavill's cameos in the Flash movie have been cut out.
Oh.
So we do know that there's some crazy stuff going on. And of course, the fans are, I can't say all the fans, but a certain contingency of Snyderverse loving fans are up in arms. And on top of that, you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson online, who's being very ambiguous about how he feels about all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's saying he's not upset and he's got a thick skin, but he's been talking to DC, he's been talking to James Gunn, he had a good meeting, and we are working out what Black Adam is going to look like going farther.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a lot of Hollywood talk to me.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, because that's what I saw. That's the tweet I saw.
Yeah. Obviously, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a very popular actor. He's also very tall and intimidating. And so what it looked like was that Black Adam was really pushed through with the force of his personality and the potential box office that it could do. Mm-hmm. And so even though Warner Brothers and DC Films knew that they were planning on doing a course correction and a change, they decided to roll the dice and see how it would do. And it didn't do so good. If there was any chance for any part of the Snyderverse to survive the regime change, it was going to be Black Adam. And it didn't quite pan out. So I do not suspect that we are going to see any of the Snyderverse again. And I know a lot of people who are really into the Snyderverse who are, to this day, still posting memes online, save the Snyderverse. Well, the problem is, as it has always been, is when Warner Brothers decided to spend $100 million more on the Snyder cut of Justice League, and it didn't put a dime more into their pockets. It may have given them some new subscriptions to HBO Max. Looks like it's going away. At least in its present form, it's going away. But the Snyderverse fans were really big on getting that Snyder cut of Justice League. This was the hill they were going to die on. Well, that was the hill they died on. They got what they wanted, but it strongly demonstrated to Warner Brothers that there ain't no money into this. Mm-hmm. And even though we got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he was very insistent on getting all this through. And in fact, if what I've been reading online is true, the fact that we got Henry Cavill at the end of Black Adam in the post-credit scene, that was all The Rock's idea, that he pushed to have that because he wanted to have the Superman Black Adam movie.
Yeah, he said, then what's the point of us doing this if Superman and Black Adam don't meet?
Right.
Yeah.
He wanted that in a huge way, and that's why he really pushed for it, and apparently that's why they put it in. But because the movie didn't perform the way that Warner Brothers needed it to, that was the final nail in the coffin for the Snyderverse. And I know there are going to be people who are not happy to hear that, but that's just the facts. Mm-hmm. Black Adam, once again, reminded Warner Brothers, oh, crap, we don't make money doing this stuff, do we? So that was it. And honestly, after we get The Flash and the final Aquaman movie, and, of course, Shazam next year,
right? And
on top of this horrible Sunday that has been piled up on all of this mess, the first part of next year, we get Ezra Miller's trial. That starts up. And that's going to bring all that back into the news. And so Warner Brothers is really, they're ready to take all of that and just shove it in the closet and forget about it at this point. They're just done. They just want to have everybody forget that any of that stuff ever happened. And there are some facets of the, and it's not even all the Snyderverse fans, but there are some that think, well, hey, we were able to bully them into spending an additional $100 million for Justice League. We should be able to bully them into giving us all the movies that we want. But it ain't going to work that way. I'm sorry to say, but being able to get the Snyder Cut of Justice League, it had to do well. Mm-hmm. And it really, just because of the fact that it was aired on a streaming service, all you really had was the views. And that was it. And so it was $100 million they'll never get back. Well, I mean, on top of what they already spent on this movie. Like I said before, that was the hill that they wanted to die on, and unfortunately, it is a hill that they died on. Like I said, I mean, if you love the Snyderverse, I'm sorry to tell you, but enjoy 2023 because that's it. Mm-hmm. And it's gone. And there's not anything that anybody's going to do about it. Not even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be able to fly in and save all this. But I will say that because of all of this stuff is the reason why we're getting all these conflicting reports. Anytime you see a story, it's like, oh, Warner Brothers is all ready to fire James Gunn. I saw that. Somebody was saying that online. And it's
really?
Like, yeah, which is like, no, they're not. No, you just want them to do that because you think if they do, then they're going to go back to the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as of right now, what's really difficult about keeping track of all of this stuff is, one, everybody's got an agenda, so there's all these conflicting stories, most of them basically patched together with bad feelings and hopes and dreams. The other part of it being, again, sometimes I just wonder just how much inside baseball should we really all care about in this situation? Mm-hmm. It's like after a while, this just gets tedious having to kind of just wading through all of this stuff and trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And the truth is, regardless of what the news tells any of us and whatever reports come out, until James Gunn and Peter Safran come out and pitch their 10-year plan, until we get to see what they're actually planning on doing, everything before then is just flat speculation.
Yep.
And so if you have hope for the Snyderverse, I don't have a lot of hope for you there. Mm-hmm. But hopefully by the first part of 2023, we will at least have some kind of an idea about what's going on. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly not going to be what we've seen before, which, depending on how you feel about that, is either the best news in the world or the worst thing you could possibly have heard.
It's kind of like with Batman and the Batman, and I'm just glad we're going to get it. So whatever they do for us, maybe we're getting an extension of the Batman universe. Well,
we are definitely getting some streaming TV shows based out of that universe. Mm-hmm. We already know that's happening. But Warner Brothers realized, and I think Marvel to a degree is realizing this as well, where everybody started to lean really heavy into streaming during the pandemic because what other option did you have?
Right, yeah.
Well, now you need to start getting things back into theaters. Mm-hmm. And for all the wonderful shows that we've gotten out of Marvel, one of the problems has been, and we've talked about this before, is the fact that it seems like there's constantly Marvel product out there. And like I say, if you don't go away, I can't miss you. Back in the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you get a couple of movies a year, or maybe one movie at the beginning. It was like one movie a year. And so you had that time to miss it and really look forward to the next one. But there's just so much stuff coming out.
You think that was a part of James Cameron's strategy for Avatar? Like, you missed me, didn't you?
That might have been part of it. But also, these movies are expensive, and certainly talking any studio into spending that kind of money was going to be difficult, even with the success. Here's what's, since you brought up Avatar, let's go ahead and mention it. Is that even though it did, I think, a little bit under $500 million its opening, and it was more than the original Avatar did, people are still giving it the side eye going, oh, it didn't do so well. I'm like, it didn't do so well. But then again, we talked about James Cameron going out in public supposedly and saying, hey, it's got to make $2 billion. It's got to be the most successful movie of all time just to make its money back. Well, it wasn't. It was number 3 of opening weekends of all time, which, okay, first of all, that's good. That's really good.
I would think so.
I would love to have made a movie that had the 3rd highest opening of all time.
Right?
Yeah. If I had that under my resume, heck, I would be as happy as you possibly could be. You couldn't ask. Well, you could ask for better. You could 2 or 1, but
James Cameron has said that he has shot Avatar 2 and 3 at the same time so that the kids wouldn't age. So what exactly is his basis for Avatar 2 to make its money back? Because he's filming them both at the same time. So how do we split that? How do we say this was exactly what we used to make Avatar 2 and this is what we used to make Avatar 3?
He might be folding in the costs of Avatar 3 into it and saying that he wanted the opening and he wanted Avatar 2 to pay for both films.
Okay.
That might have been what his thinking on it was. And so that, hey, Avatar 3, that's all pure profit at that point. Okay, well, that's awesome. But the other problem, too, is that James Cameron, his movies tend to be a bit of a slow burn.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes really good money on these. You know, a lot of movies, they peak that first weekend and then drop off suddenly. But movies like Titanic and the first Avatar, it had staying power. It was making money consistent.
Word of mouth and
it was,
repeat customers.
Exactly. It was consistent money. And so that's why it surprised me that James Cameron was so insistent on this movie had to make a huge profit on its opening weekend. Now, again, that's what typically you need to do with movies, but it hasn't typically been how his movies have made their money. It's like it's been over time. And so he may be concerned that this is a different world, this is a post-COVID world, and that this idea that movies will stick around for a while and be able to make money. We're not living in that world anymore. But at the same time, we do have the fact that getting movies in the theater is still a little bit tricky, so you don't have as wide a field as you did before. I don't know. The only thing we're going to be able to do is just wait it out and see what happens. But I did want to say before we go is that we did happen to get a little bit of a gift this week because we got to see the costume for the new Doctor.
Yes. Oh.
And Ruby Sunday. And so as I know you've seen the pictures, what did you think?
Oh, I think it's adorable. I think it's so cute, and I don't know if you'd call that tweed, exactly whatever that suit is.
Ncuti Gatwa did grow up in Scotland, so it did look like a tartan to me, or at least a tartan pattern.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, I love the orange and the brown. I love the fact that the shoes seem to coordinate with everything. He wears a little bit of jewelry. You can't really tell what the pendant is that he's wearing. And I may be projecting a lot into this, but if it's what I think it is, I think it's amazing.
Ooh.
But it may be a St. Christopher medal. And if it is, that would be amazing because, of course, St. Christopher is the patron saint of travelers.
Traveling, yeah.
Yeah, so if he's wearing a St. Christopher medal, I think that would be that would be
It's
an
adorable.
interesting. That'd be a really interesting little nod, I think. Again, it's a little bit of a tease, and there may be a bit of a question of why now, but I think it may be similar to the reason why we got the announcement of Ncuti Gatwa the way that we did. There's a possibility that now that they're filming, they were worried it was going to leak anyway. So, hey, let's get on top of it. Let's publish it first before.
Can't wait for the cosplayers to get a hold of it. They're going to be looking up that exact pattern and finding the fabric and getting that made. It's gonna blow up really fast.
Oh, yeah. And you want to be the one to release it. You don't want it to basically leak before you have a chance to show it yourself. But I love the pictures, and there was a little bit of a video of the two of them filming each other in their costumes.
I didn't see that. Oh, that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. You can tell that they have a great chemistry together, which is going to be great because, again, they're going to be introducing, in a real sense, not just a new season of Doctor Who, but a completely new era. This is going to be like, they talk about old new and who knew. New who knew.
Who knew?
New who. This is going to be the Neo New Who.
Neo New, yeah, because I always called it Neo Who and Orthodox Who.
I try not to be so religious about it, although I do pray to Tom Baker every morning.
Yes,
Because why wouldn't you?
Your patron saint.
He's a lot of people's patron saint, but yes, certainly he is mine for sure. But yeah, this is going to be something completely different. And so it is going to be...
Very BBC of you. Now for something completely different.
And now for something completely different. But yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how things develop as it goes along. We've got months left until we do get to see the new Doctor before the new Doctor.
The new old Doctor.
The old new Doctor.
1014.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exciting, and we had that to look forward to. And also, Disney Plus decided to give us a little taste of what's coming next year, including scenes from different movies and TV shows that they're going to be doing next year, narrated by a very familiar voice that introduced us to a season 2 of Loki. So there were some scenes for season 2 that they showed.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
And the narration is like, why, that sounds like Loki. Well, yes, it is. So we got to see a little bit of a taste of Loki and Mobius in tuxes for some reason.
Okay.
And Loki falling from a great height for some reason. And like I said, just little dribs and drabs just to let us know, oh, by the way, you remember how you liked Loki? Well, we're giving you more of it. So be ready and be prepared. And I am certainly going to be ready and prepared. But I did want to take a moment to wish you and to wish all the Geek Watchers a very happy holiday this weekend. And next week, we are going to do our year end. And there is something that I saw that I did want to talk to you about a little bit next week. We'll leave that as a teaser for next week, but we will definitely talk about that.
We shall see.
And so with that said, we come to the end of episode 176. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time, and happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.